Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Roar Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Laura Sturm.
All right, welcome to episode 76. I am one of your hosts, Joshua Rohr.
Joshua. Oh, I'm Laura Sturm. How are you?
I'm
Joshua Rohr.
Yeah, it just came to me. That's my actual name. I go by Josh, though. Aren't you glad you know that?
Thank you for clarifying that, Joshua. I'm going to call you Joshua from now on. All right, we're going to roll right into the powerlifting situation for the week. So here's the situation. You coach a team of 20 lifters competing all at the state meet. There's no limit to how many lifters you can list on the official team roster because only the team's top 10 best scores will make up the total team points. If the team roster has less than 10 lifters, a single lifter can score points twice by being in two divisions, like open and masters or full power and bench only. If a team has 10 or more lifters, a single lifter can score only once. So mathematically, it would be detrimental to the team points to list more than your top 9 lifters entered in two divisions. So while beneficial to the team points, this would mean leaving out half of your lifters, over half of your lifters, off the official team roster. Official rosters will be listed on the event website, in the lifter's guide, and in the state meet program. Do you include all of your team members or only the top 9?
Yeah, this is like a really bad spot to be in, honestly. So like on one end, you can say like if you're willing to, like, all you do is you want to win at all costs, then I say, kick those people off the team roster and go for the win. But being that this is a team event, like that kind of defeats the whole purpose of a team event, is not actually competing with your whole team. So this is actually the exact scenario that we're in for the state meet this year. So people have been asking me what I'm going to do. We are listing our entire team. So if it makes us finish second, third, fourth, last because of it, then that's how we're going to
Dead ass last.
Yeah, dead ass last.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you list your lifters and let things fall out how they may.
Yeah. I mean, there's no logical explanation that you can give those team members that, well, yes, you're part of our team, but we're not going to acknowledge you as part of our team at this event. I think that's
right.
I think that's
so
crap.
We can win.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And there's, there shouldn't, I don't know. I just have a problem with being at a disadvantage by listing members that even if they don't score, that having their numbers on the team affects how other lifters can score. So I don't know. It's just, I don't know. We're rolling with our whole team. That's how what I believe. I think everybody that's on the team is on the team, and we're not gonna, shun somebody just so we can have other lifters score better.
Right. Well, awesome. I think that's how it should go, and let the chips fall where they may. So in years past, it was scored differently.
Yeah. So last year, for example, you could enter as many divisions as you want and score in as many divisions as you want, basically. So, for example, if you entered the Open and Masters, you're scored in each division by points. So it's pound for pound. So, you still have to be good enough to win or get second or third and overall in that division to get those team points. So if we have a lifter, as an example, the other thing that this is going off the topic of the question here a little bit, but the other thing that's plaguing us now as a team is we have, 2 lifters in the Open and Masters, and hypothetically realistically they could both go 1 and 2 in both divisions, but we are now getting blocked because we can only score one lifter or one score.
Right.
We're literally blocking our teammate from getting those first place points. So what would be, in previous years, 12 points and 9 points for first and second in the Open, and 12 points and 9 points for first and second in the Masters. we're now getting stuck with only 12 and only 9 because the other scores for those 2 lifters are blocked. So I don't know. It just, so we would be at it, it'd be to our advantage to have one of them back out of one of the, or I guess each of them back out of one division so that they're in opposite divisions.
Right.
But that's also kind of a strategic disadvantage then, that if they can go 1 and 2, that means somebody else, another team can only get 3rd place points. So
Right.
we take them out. We don't, that still gives somebody else an opportunity, but we don't
Right.
get credit for the points that we placed in, even though we beat other lifters. It just, I don't know. I'm not going to harp on that too much because, it's been clear that that's how it's going to be.
Yeah,
It is what it is.
it is what it is, I guess.
But anyway, so the factual situation that we're in is what was just talked about, the, whether we keep 9 lifters on our roster or list our whole team, and, we're going to roll with the whole team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you can edit this out if you'd like. The part about the whole thing that that kind of caught my eye and made me go, oh, that's not right, is if you signed up for multiple divisions and you paid extra for multiple divisions, thinking that it would be scored the way it's been scored in the past, and then maybe you'd want to be pulled out. Well, probably no refund's going to be given.
So
you wouldn't have done that.
So I will say the meet director did offer refunds for anybody that wants to drop divisions. So, so I think that part's right. But this change was made 6.5 weeks before the meet itself. So like, it's just, and it was, it was like 3 days before the team sign up deadline, or 4 days, something like that. So, the argument was, the change wasn't last minute because,
it was 6 weeks.
It was 6 weeks, and there's already like 219 lifters signed up at that point. But I guess another issue that has come to light here is that we have lifters on our team that weren't necessarily wanting to or ready to compete at the state meet that could theoretically win a masters division or something else. So we could take one of our lifters that's in 2 divisions out of the masters and have somebody else win, but with 6 weeks notice, we can't get them ready for the meet at this point.
Right.
So it's just, we're not sitting here crying boo-hoo, but I just feel like this, I don't know, I have a lot of issues with the way this was done. And, regardless, we're going to compete. We're going to do our best, and we're going to do it as a team.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to fully move on then.
Cool.
So we're going to move on to our new lifter tip. Squat depth. You are low enough when the top surface of the legs at the hip joint are lower than the top of the knees. It has nothing to do with the hamstrings being parallel to the ground or any other factor. The only thing that matters are the 2 points mentioned above. Many new lifters think they are squatting deep enough when they're actually high. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of, I say new lifters, but there's a lot of lifters that have been, competing for a year or two that, they'll get red lights and, show me a video and be like, hey, this is deep. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, it appears deep, if you're looking at the hamstrings, or even if you're looking at the quads parallel to the ground, but it's literally the 2 points, the top surface at the crease of the hip, and the top of the knee. Those are the only 2 points that matter. You can have a quad that sticks up another 6 inches off higher than that. That has no reference on squat depth. And I even think, like, I think even some newer referees, like when I'm testing them or when they're taking their exam, that's something that has to be communicated to them, because, that's just what they're used to, or what they have seen is, squats that are borderline counting, and they really shouldn't. And I think that's something that, I think everybody needs to do a better job of holding lifters accountable, in training. Coaches need to do a better job, and referees, as well. Like, sometimes they feel bad. First time lifters, gonna bomb out because they're, just above parallel, but you can't make exceptions for that. You can't make exceptions to those rules just because you feel bad. So, this isn't the whole point of this new lifter tip is not to, point fingers or anything, but just to kind of let people know, like, exactly what the definition of depth is, so that you can practice and train accordingly.
Right. So hip crease below knee.
Yep.
Top of the knee.
Hip crease at the top of the leg. That's the key factor. It's not where the crease starts on the side of your hip. That's what a lot of
Right.
people, I think, look at. It's literally the top surface of the leg at the hip joint. And if you look at, a lot of people's squats, the side crease is below the top of the knee, but the top part of the leg is not below the top of the knee.
Right.
Where a lot of people's training. So that's why they're getting red lights at meets, and just knowing the difference there, I guess.
Yeah. I'm practicing going deep.
Going deep.
Very nice. All right.
Was that your half-assed Borat impression? Very nice.
No, that was my full-assed Borat.
Wow, that needs some work.
All right, maybe. Okay. So I did want to take a few minutes of this podcast today just to kind of pay homage to a lifter of ours who was a Team Roar lifter who passed this last weekend. Selena Hess was one of the lifters that I brought into the team through our gym back in the day. So a little backstory, like when I first started lifting in Team Roar, I was still kind of leading a team at my gym, which was formerly CrossFit Johns Creek. And so there was one year at the state meet, we actually competed against each other, which I still to this day feel kind of badly about. And then after that, I would take my lifters and make them kind of like honorary Team Roar lifters. So Selena was one of those that was from my gym who became an honorary Team Roar lifter and was coached by our coaching staff and brought to meets and lifted. She mostly lifted in Masters 2 division at 72 kilos. And I think she competed for, I think 3 years, if I'm not wrong. And even did the nationals 1 year, but, competed at the meets that I held back in the day, powerlifting for pink. She went to Battle on the Border 1 year, I believe, went to nationals, held some state records for a while. She might still have one. I'm not quite sure. But she was one of our lifters, and she was a wonderful, wonderful person who literally would go way out of her way to do anything. I once gave her a compliment on her earrings. She took them out of her ears and handed them to me.
No
She's
way.
like, oh, yeah, seriously. Like, she was like, oh, you like these? I like things that make you happy. Here you go. You appreciate them. Here you go. And just, yeah. And that's, she was always the person who made sure everyone's birthday was celebrated and celebrated well. Brownies to the gym all the time, even though we're like, Selena, this is a gym. We're health focused. Stop the brownies. But, we were still grinning kind of, and sneaking the brownies home and still eating them, of course.
Oh yeah, of course.
Of course. And, just like Dan's birthday, my birthday, everyone's birthday, just, she was, my nickname has been Mom at the gym, but she was just another of the moms at the gym. And there's a great picture from Powerlifting for Pink that has been posted around, and I'll send it to you for this episode, of her coming out of her squat with this look on her face where she's gritting her teeth, and Dan's in the background being like, hold, because, one thing Selena was had difficulty with sometimes with the commands. Like, she would just get excited over making a lift. She'd stand up from that squat that was a PR and she'd walk it in.
Yeah,
without waiting.
Screw the commands.
Screw the commands. There was one time, I think it was at Battle on the Creek, or Battle on the Border, sorry, where she lifted a PR deadlift, got to the top, but then got so excited she dropped it and was just like, oh, look what and she was so excited that she got the deadlift, and then to get all red lights. But she didn't care, right? She was just like, I'm doing this for the love of the sport. I'm not here to, win a ton of medals or rack up state records. She just didn't care. She was just in for the lifting.
That's awesome. I think there's a lot to be learned from that. Just the joy of doing it, because we've talked about this before, like getting so caught up in like placing or the numbers you hit or or medals or whatever it is, and just the sheer joy of making a lift is, I mean, I see that I see that every now and then where somebody will, make a technical error like that, but they did the lift and they get super excited. But most people just get super pissed off or whatever, and you can almost say they take it too seriously.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's a, I don't know if you call it a lesson, but kind of a cool,
Right.
I don't know, something to take away. Like, remember the joy of the feat. I
Right.
guess.
Remember why we're here in the first place.
Yeah.
It's not, it's to enjoy the sport, because at the end of the day, it's a sport.
Yeah.
And I also want to say a little something about, I think in the last couple episodes, I think you asked me if I would come back and coach at the state meet or go to nationals. I was like, yeah, no. And then Gino in last week's episode was like, so why aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, no. And I kind of want to say something about like why that's really happening. And
I was waiting on it. I knew that was eating at you. I just knew.
You didn't know. And it kind of does have to do a little bit with just, reflecting, and, with Selena's passing, it definitely made me reflect a little bit more about stuff. So she got diagnosed less than a year ago with an aggressive form of cancer, right? And it was something that just came up quick, right? And a year ago, she was completely fine, right? But where I've been since, I don't know, since COVID really hit, and I got to be an empty nester, is like, you're only on this planet for so long, and you have choices to make with how you spend your time. And for many, many years, I ran a gym, ran a business, was going to every single powerlifting meet that I basically could volunteer at. If they were happening, I was there, pretty much in the state of Georgia. And then, going from one competition to the next, basically, I would almost do 2 competitions a year, but exclusively train 12 hours a week, every week for years that way, just going in and out. And then like at some point, that when I got injured, that pattern got broken. And once that pattern got broken, and then COVID hit, so it kind of became obvious that, you're not going to go back and rehab yourself at this moment and go back to meets, because they ain't happening. When all that kind of aligned, it's like, once that kind of, it's my knees better. I could squat, I could train to, compete again. I could probably get it back. The strength doesn't totally leave, right?
Yeah.
And I know how to do it. But is that how I want to spend my time right now? And, I guess the answer was coming down to no. It's just not how I see my priorities. It's been a chunk of my life in the last, like, I don't know, 10, 12 years that I just lost, because I was so into chasing the achievements of running a gym well, running a business well, and competing and coaching, right? And I hate to say I missed out on my kids' birthdays, but I didn't not. Like, I was there, but I don't know that I was there.
Yeah.
So that's where all that's coming from. And, and just reflecting on Selena's death, it was just more like thinking about where I can be intentional, and where making choices about where I want to spend my time. And as much as I love, love, love my powerlifting family, and I love this podcast, this is how I'm able to still get back to the sport, is hopefully through this podcast, and, giving advice to new lifters, and talking about situations, and talking about powerlifting, and having my enthusiasm for it without having to spend 20 hours, a week. When you go to a powerlifting meet and you're sitting there refereeing all weekend, and then at the end of the day, like, you're like, I just gave up my entire weekend for that, which is great if that's what you're really, really choosing to do. But if you're sitting there at any point going, man, I'm just resentful that I'm here and I just gave up my entire weekend, don't do that anymore.
Yeah. And, full disclosure, that's kind of where I got to, with, running meets and everything, and I think we've even talked about it before, like, COVID in a lot of ways for me personally was a blessing in disguise, because it forced me to step back and slow down a little bit, because I was there for a while. I was running 10 meets a year. And on top of kind of having a perfectionist mentality, like I was stressed out 24/7, 365, trying to make every meet exactly perfect, and every little detail. And the reality is that they never would be perfect, and they weren't ever perfect, and that stressed me out even more that they didn't go perfectly. And it was just an unrealistic expectation. And I felt the obligation to do it because I wasn't aware of anybody else willing to do it. Anytime, like yourself, Chris Elmore, like anybody, Latavia, anybody else that wanted to run a meet, I was always more than happy to support them, because that meant I didn't have to do it. And when COVID hit and meets kind of stopped, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I kind of like this, not having to do this. So like, you know, I still I'm still happy to volunteer at meets. I still enjoy volunteering. I actually That's one thing I used to say is like, I just wish I could spot and load. I just wish I could referee because I never got to, because I was always running the meet. And now, like, I can do that. Like I can like I those things do give me joy. So like, if I was told like, hey, you have to referee at every single meet in Georgia every year, I'd be like, okay, that's a little bit of a burden. I would probably do it anyway, just because I'm, whatever. It's not the best thing, but now I'm at the point where I can choose to, do 2, 3, 4 meets a year. And, there for a while, like, so October 20, this past meet in October was the first meet that I didn't attend in Georgia in like 10 years. And
Wow.
because I was, and you want to know why? Because I was going on an anniversary trip to Greece with my wife, and I literally felt guilty that I was not at that event. Um,
Mm.
but upon reflection, I'm like, well, the meet went well. Um, Everybody on our team seemed to have a good time. Um, I guess I didn't have to be there. So
Right.
so it just kind of, I don't know, all those things combined just kind of, yeah, it kind of puts it in perspective a little bit. Like, you know, I started coaching because I love the sport so much. So, I stopped training because I was getting to the point where I hated the sport, really. And, I was dreading going to the gym because the last thing I wanted to do was be at the gym coaching all day and then go home and train. And, I can
Right.
honestly say, like, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, like, why am I, what makes me want to get back on the platform? I've been thinking about that, and I actually have been really enjoying training recently, which I have not had in a long time. It's always been a job and a task, and I do genuinely love being at the gym with everybody else. During the highs and the lows. Like when I mean, I don't know how many times I've been there, and somebody you know misses a lift or is having a bad day and just breaks down crying. Like I like being there for that. And the flip side, I really enjoy like the highs too. Like people hit PRs at a meet, or they pull for the win or whatever, um, or get through their first meet. Like I genuinely enjoy being there. And I think, stepping back from running so many meets, and people ask me, am I going to run meets in the future? Yes, I probably will. Like, because I think I would want to, I wouldn't feel obligated to. So, taking a little bit of downtime now, but the point is like, I love the sport, and the irony is I let the sport take away from the joy of the sport for a little while by not kind of balancing life better. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, that was my long ass version way of saying I agree with you.
Yeah. But I mean, now you're back to actually coaching your lifters at the state meet. Look at that.
Yeah, and
It's
and
amazing.
that's one of the things too. Like, I get joy out of coaching. So when I'm at a meet with 20, 30 of my lifters and I can't watch them or coach them because I'm running the meet, that kind of sucks too. So,
Yep.
but,
Yep. At the end of the day, do the things that bring you joy, and
Yep.
don't do the things that you're just on autopilot to do.
Yeah.
That's
Agreed.
my point.
Yep. So,
and Selena, I love you. And yeah, I can't say anything else.
that's always there's really no words to really say. Like, I don't even know how you how you address stuff like that. And, this is the this is the second loss we've had in about a 6-month span, with so it's been tough. But yeah, the lessons taken away. Enjoy life and look for the joy in the little things that you do. And if you don't get joy from them, then maybe there's better ways to spend your time.
Yeah, make better choices.
Do better with your life.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's all we've got tonight, unless you've got anything else, Josh.
Nope, that's it. I was just gonna say, like, this almost sounds like a negative ad towards powerlifting. It's not that at all.
No,
I do want to clarify
Zero.
that, because, like, I'll ask you the question too. Like, you did sacrifice a lot competing, and maybe the answer is not what I think it is, but would you give up all of that to go back and do things differently, or maybe I would. So it's all or nothing. Would you give up all of it, but maybe you could have stepped away a year or two sooner and still got out of it what you wanted to get out of it. I don't know.
Maybe
those are things to I always think about.
But I think the stuff that we go through that maybe we would theoretically change, that obviously we can't. That's still the stuff that makes us who we are.
Yeah.
And right, wrong, doesn't matter. That's where we are, and then we get to where we are, and then we can make choices from the present.
Yeah. And
as that sounds.
Yeah, I don't know if it's hokey, but I look at it too, like some of my fondest memories are in some of those high stress kind of training sessions, or where it almost it almost was a job there for a while to get to that top level. And I actually, for me personally, like, I enjoy being part of that, and to see you and some of our other lifters make it to that international level, and have that success, and some of the memories of people we met, and just some of the interactions we've had traveling and stuff like that. I mean, those do mean a lot to me personally. And I think that it's easy to get caught up in the mundane, like how much time and everything, but there has been there is a silver lining to some of it, some of the relationships and some of the experiences that
absolutely.
We got to experience. And I think reflecting back, it's easy to look at the things that you missed out on or whatever, but I think it's important to look at the highs too.
Yes.
And, there's some definitely positives that came away from all of that. So
I mean, I got to spend 3 days a week, a couple hours session with you, Josh. So woohoo.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my joke if you didn't circle back. I'm like, so is this your way of telling me that you don't want to do this podcast anymore?
No, absolutely not. So no, I still find joy in powerlifting, but mine is more on the powerlifting fam side.
Yeah.
And what I can do to support that family.
Yeah. Yep.
This is my way. So
yeah, I like it, and I appreciate it.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to sign off, and until next week, bye now.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.